I'll just wait for you to cue me.
12? Roll camera? Yeah. 12 Bravo, take 2, marker.
Action! And action!
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 154 of MCRAE Live. The date today is Tuesday, March the 21st, March 23rd, 2021, 12:09 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. My name's Dave MCRAE, coming to you live from the VoiceMann Studios in Toronto, Canada. And on the show today, I have one of my favorite guests, my first guest I ever had on the show, actually. The one, the only Cecil Laird will be joining us. We'll be talking Dylan's New Nightmare. We'll be talking horror. Even touch on some It's Me, Billy. We'll be taking your questions. We're going to give you an update. I get a lot of questions all the time. What's happening with Dylan's New Nightmare? What's going on? We want to see it. We want to see it. Well, the man himself will be able to provide an update for you today on the show. So that will be good. That will be good. Cecil Laird, the man, the myth, the legend. Ladies and gentlemen, you know him, you love him. Here is Cecil Laird. What's going on, buddy?
Everybody, what's going on? How you doing today, Dave?
I am doing pretty good, my man. I'm doing pretty good.
I came this close to being like, ooh, I should do the bit where I'm like drinking water, like, oh, sorry.
Yes, you should have, and spat it out everywhere. Yeah. I mean, just everywhere. And then falling off your chair onto the ground, and you're lying on the ground. You actually hit your head. Unbeknownst to me, you're unconscious.
Yeah, that's true. And then when I come to, I just like for comedic effect, grab the mic and just do the show from down there on the ground.
Yes, the entire you do the you do the entire show from the ground. We don't see you. We just see your leg and your shoulder.
Kind of paralyzed right now, Dave, but I can still talk.
Exactly. 100%. It's great to have you on the show, man. Thanks for coming back on. Let's get the cat out of the bag. Let's talk Dylan's New Nightmare. Let's start here. Give us an update on the situation. Of course, I'll provide the situation update from my perspective and where I am here in Toronto. But let's talk about it. Dylan's New Nightmare. What is the latest?
I had a response ready, and then Hans Gruber made me laugh in the chat. So
breaking news: Cecil to announce replacement for
yeah, exactly.
Oh God, I'm telling you,
we got to talk.
Yeah, we got to talk because
I was hoping we'd cover this last, but
yes,
all right, here we go.
Yeah. No, hey. And totally, like, I'd be lying if I said that didn't cross my mind. I'm sitting here going, fuck off. Like, I want to get down there. What the hell is going on?
Yeah, it's, okay, so the situation is, obviously, since COVID has completely been eliminated, we are fully scheduled and moving forward. That's unfortunately not the case, though. So, were that the case, then yes, we would be lined up, ready to go. But obviously, The virus is still out there and kicking a lot of people's asses. Now we do have the vaccine getting rolled out, but it's, you know, it's a little bit more of a slow rollout than we might have hoped.
Right.
There's still a lot of resistance in what one might consider middle America, but there is. You know, it's progress at least. So it's definitely not as bad as it was this time last year. There's actually kind of a light at the end of the tunnel, but we still want to be safe. But even straight up more reality driven reason is, frankly, we didn't budget for the extra precautions and PPE equipment, personal protective equipment, that we would need for people in order to safely film. Right now, Hollywood productions are going, but they're in much smaller numbers and at much greater expense as a result of this situation. And we would have to, I mean, I couldn't justify, look, and I'm not throwing anyone under the bus by accident or anything like that, indirectly. First off, Canada has things going much better, a lot cleaner, and you guys,
it's better. Yes.
In comparison, you guys obviously did it, you know, completely safely. You filmed It's Me, Billy, but there's a lot of productions, a lot of fan films that are still filming down here in the US that aren't, I know for a fact, aren't abiding by these things. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to risk people. And yes, I could know every single person inside and out and say, oh, I trust them all. None of them are going to do anything to expose anyone. But frankly, it's not my place to put everyone at risk for that.
Right.
So I'm refusing to do so. It does not mean that the movie is not happening. A lot of people are messaging me on the regular, is Dylan's New Nightmare still happening? Yes, it is absolutely still happening.
Yep.
But you know, we have to do it safely. We want to do it safely, especially because, you know, one of the bigger scenes has numerous people in close proximity. If we are going to film it as though, you know, people aren't going to forever go like, oh, that was filmed during COVID. We don't want to have to do that, right? We don't want to have.
We don't want Freddy in a mask.
We don't. Yeah, exactly. Well, not only that, but you know, Dylan may not have strayed far from Hollywood in the story, and he might be trying to work in it. And you know, there are scenes that necessitate lots of people in a small area. Right. You know, without spoiling too much, although I just spoiled a little bit for you guys, but it's stuff that would feel out of place if everyone is sat 6 feet apart in the scene. Right. Do you know what I mean? So I want to wait and make sure we can do it. But, you know, we could, sure, we don't have to film them with six feet apart. But what we then have to do is give everyone rapid testing, you know, everyone that's in that scene a rapid test.
But that costs a lot of money.
That A, costs a lot of money, and B, isn't as reliable as send away testing. You know what I mean? So all these factors need to be taken into account. And so there's a lot of, you know, we're still doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes. The positives that I can say is there's been progress in the wardrobe department and progress in the makeup department. The makeup department most keenly so, where our sculpt of Freddy is now complete, and Nora is working on, you know, running some tests so we can start to get all of those applications ready for Dave once everything is good to go. So the mask, or the sculpt for Freddy is awesome, you guys. We can talk. We're obviously not going to spoil what it looks like, but we can spoil how we feel about it, because I was so excited getting the progress pics that I was immediately sending them over to Dave as I got them. So Dave, let's get your reaction to those sculpt.
I mean, it looks like Freddy Krueger. You know what I mean? I mean, it was, I remember watching it, looking at the photos and thinking to myself, like, I can't, in the preliminary photos you sent me, like very early on, I could still see sort of me in the sculpt, because obviously it's to my head. But once the progress went along, Dave McCrae went away. and it became Freddy Krueger, which is what you want naturally, right? It's just, you know, what the reason, of course, they mold it to your face is so it fits your face. It's not supposed to look like you. It's just supposed to fit your face, to fit your head shape and all that kind of stuff. And so very early on, yeah, I was like, I can kind of still see me in there, but that's, you know, it's cool. Like, you know, it's preliminary, it's early. But, you know, 2 or 3 months down the road when you sent me the update, I was like, oh, I don't see me at all anymore. Like this really does look like Freddy. And not that there's anything wrong with the silicone masks. I mean, those masks are great. And if you are on a budget and in the right lighting from a certain distance with the right lens in the right situation, those silicone masks can knock it out of the fucking park. 100%, absolutely. But when you can take it to the next level and actually are able to afford and do something like the prosthetics, like a la, you know, Robert Englund sitting in the makeup chair kind of thing. I mean, that only enhances the level of detail, you know, and then when you get into post-production, you can really play with those midtones because you don't have to be afraid of getting too close or revealing that it's, oh, we don't want to get, hang on, I can kind of see a little bit of the rubber. You know, it's so much better. You know, it's not that you don't have to pay attention to lighting and all that, of course, but it is like it's like the equivalent of shooting on a DSLR and shooting on like the Red or the Airy. It's not that you can't shoot a great movie on a DSLR. You can and make it look great. But once you get to the cinematic cameras, the dynamic range is just so much more broad and wide. It allows you so much more room to play. That's the difference between the silicone masks and the prosthetic. The silicone masks are great and you can make it look great. It's fucking amazing. It looks great. But when you get to the prosthetics, it's like a different level because you have so much more room to play because it's molded. It's like, you know, it's just the next level. So anyway, that's how I felt about it. I was seeing this and I was like, this looks amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's pretty much exactly what I had pictured in my head. And the cool thing, I don't know. I mean, I'm guessing I told this story in one of my behind the scenes, but I don't know if I've actually told it on here. I don't know. Maybe I did, Dave. You'd remember. Did I tell the story of kind of how Nora and I bonded over the look when we first came up with it? You were there, right?
Yes. I was there. It was at Nora's house. And,
So, well, I'll tell it again, even if, you know, I've told it before. So
yeah, do it.
It was really cool because, so basically
this is November 2019.
Yeah. And oh my God, geez. Wow. That long ago. Fuck.
Well, I remember because I was in LA for the Voice Arts Awards. And then
no wonder everyone's
was it 8?
Pissed.
Yeah, it was 19. No wonder everyone's. Oh well, no, but hey, it's not like you're just taking your sweet ass time. No wonder everyone's pissed.
But yeah. So we go over, right, and it's to have Dave do his molding. Which, by the way, if you haven't seen it, we have that on the horror show. Go over to my channel after this, of course, but you can see the whole hour. The whole hour plus long process of pouring stuff all over Dave and shutting him up for an hour for the first time ever.
Yeah. Cecil was like, "Are you going to be able to be quiet for this long?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, I can be quiet for this long." Yeah.
But while we were there after the fact, we were inside and Nora and I, you know, started to talk more in depth about the look. And again, without spoiling one, I was like, so this is what I think is the scariest Freddy. I really like this look. And then this is another look that so doing something like this over here would definitely make sense. As a result, again, we are doing a sequel to Wes Craven's New Nightmare.
Yeah.
And so we can do this in a cool way by blending it with another thing that we kind of know. And so what was funny is I said one of these two things. I said this one over here. And then I was like, and I kind of want it to be like, and she's like, you know what look I always liked? She's like, this over here. Before I even said what this over here was, she's like, I've always liked this look over here. And I was like, yes, that's exactly what I was going to tell you. I want to mix with this look. And she was like, oh, that's awesome. So we were like literally on the same wavelength, like from jump.
Yep.
So that was really cool. But
and then she brought up the look on her television and we were all looking at it going, yes.
Exactly. And so the sculpt, you know, getting back to that, it is what I wanted in the blending of those two looks. And it was cool because I got to know along the way, she was giving me little updates. And so I got to give my input as they were changing little things here and there. And, ultimately it's still, even, across a couple of states, was a collaborative effort that ended up resulting in such a really cool thing that I can't wait for everyone to see. Of course, they're not going to see it until the movie, not even in a trailer. I refuse to reveal the look there. We'll allude to it. We'll have some fun with that. But yeah, no, you guys aren't going to see the look until the movie. I'll let you know that for sure. But I have a feeling a lot of you guys are going to be very happy with where we ended up for sure. Yeah.
100%.
So that was all to say there has been progress during this time. We're still making use of the time, and Dave was a part of the fact when we went through the entire script numerous times, got it really, really tight. So that all was because we had this extra time as well. So the movie is so much stronger now than it ever has been because of this. So there is a positive side to having to wait this long. Right. So keep that in mind. Now, with that being said, along with not wanting to use, again, keep in mind, guys, we raised 75% of the budget we were looking for on our first campaign. Yeah. Okay. We would have to dig into that budget to pay for that COVID stuff. So we're trying to avoid that. But what I've basically decided, well, even before that, let's talk about the other big hurdle, which has been the travel restrictions. Okay. That's what we were holding off for so long. And apparently it's only just recently changed, but it's not fully what we want it to be yet. So before I dive into what our plan is, Dave, go ahead and talk a little bit about that part of it.
Well, it's frustrating. There's been a travel advisory since the pandemic began, and things just get tighter and tighter and tighter. And, although there are, I believe it was, I don't know if it was WestJet or I don't think it was Air Canada. I can't remember, but there were certain, for a few months, there were certain flights that were only going to certain destinations, obviously probably spots that weren't hotspots or whatever. The situation now, and the situation that I face as a Canadian, or anybody would face traveling to another country, is whenever I travel to the United States or wherever I'm going, if I'm not just in Canada, of course, if I go to the US, I'm not covered under any sort of health plan. I don't have health insurance when I go to the United States, as no Canadian would, unless, of course, I have a dual, citizenship or whatever. But so whenever I travel to the States, like when I was in Los Angeles hanging out with Cecil and Nora, and I was there for the Voice Arts Awards, I had health travel insurance, which I usually get through my bank, and it usually covers something like $2 million liability, whatever it is, right? And so if anything were to happen to me, if I was in a car accident, if I fell sick or whatever the case is, I can be taken to the hospital there and I'm covered. I don't have to worry about anything. When the pandemic first began, one of the things that they did not cover was COVID-19. So if I got into a car accident or whatever the case is, I'm covered. But if I fell sick with COVID and I am in a Phoenix hospital or whatever the case is, now things may have changed. But at the time, this time last year, when we were gearing up to shoot this movie in May, Dylan's New Nightmare in May, I wouldn't have been covered. So if I had flown and I got sick with COVID, wherever I caught it, on the plane there, at wherever, I wouldn't have been covered, and I would have been up Schitt's Creek. So that's one of the things as a traveler, as an international traveler to the States, that obviously is very important to me, and that makes sense. I need to be covered for COVID, not just health stuff. That's good too. That's got to happen. But I have to have something that covers it, that says, yeah, if you wind up in a Phoenix hospital with COVID, no worries, no worries at all. You're covered. Because, as Canadians, we do have quote unquote free healthcare. Now, obviously we pay much higher taxes, to get that. But certainly, that needs to be covered. The other thing is, of course, is that I need to find out what are the regulations and rules as an international traveler going to Phoenix. Am I going to have to arrive in Phoenix 2 weeks before we shoot, which is going to cost money as well, right? Because I'm coming from Toronto. Is the laws in the state of Arizona, are they going to say, hey, international traveler, welcome, but now you have to stay in a hotel for, a week before to make sure that you're okay because you've just come from another country before you even shoot. So we may be shooting for a week, but I might have to be there for a total of 2 or 3 weeks, which is going to cost extra money as well. I have to find that out, make sure that that's not the situation. I got
to deal with him extra time.
Exactly. I do know that coming back to Toronto, one of the things right now is, and I think this is, I have to get the update on this, but it was like this a couple of weeks ago when we were all talking about this, and I was talking to Vince. One of the things that I don't quite understand, which is strange, of course, when you fly back to Toronto, it is now law that every international traveler coming back into the country has to get a COVID-19 test done. Okay, well, that's fine. I mean, I get that. That's, okay, great. But it may be at the expense of the traveler, but also you have to be put up in a designated hotel for 3 days while you wait for your results at the expense of the traveler. And at one point, you can find this online. I'm not making this up. I don't know if this has changed or if they've been able to adjust this. Admittedly, I've been neck deep into It's Me, Billy, so I haven't been keeping too, up on it at the moment. But as of recently as, say, like a month ago or so, Trudeau, the prime minister, held a press conference saying that it would cost the traveler up to $2,000. And I remember thinking to myself, what hotel are they putting us in? The Hilton in downtown Toronto or something? Or like the Ritz-Carlton? I mean, what? $2,000? That for some reason, that doesn't make any sense. There has to be other things on top of that, which is you're probably going to be fed so you don't have to pay for your food. Or no, you would have to pay for your food, but they would probably bring you like that $2,000 probably covers the COVID test, your stay at the hospital, sorry, let's hope not, the stay at the hotel. And they probably, from people that I've talked to, they bring you food because it's a designated COVID hotel. So 3 times a day, they bring you food like room service to your rooms. It probably covers that as well. It could cost you up to, and I'm thinking to myself, what? Like really $2,000. So that's something that you have to think about, that you have to take, into consideration. And these things are always changing. Budget for. That's right. Mm-hmm. That's right. And these things are always changing. So at the end of the day, what is it? And, flying to Phoenix, is that going to be my responsibility? Am I going to have to be put up in a hotel out of pocket for me? Probably. I mean, I can't see them paying for it. So what is it going to cost me at the end of the day to shoot the movie? And where it wouldn't have cost that, 2 or 3 years ago, I just fly to Phoenix and away we go. So
if you had to do that because of the movie, I would make sure that we cover it. But that's why we're going to get to where we got to.
Obviously. For sure. I just mean that that's something that now the production has to take into consideration as well. Because as far as I know, I'm the only international person on the shoot. So crossing states is one thing. Even though I'm in Canada and we're essentially like the same thing.
Aren't you guys like the 52nd state?
Something like that. Yeah. 52nd. Who's the 51st?
Isn't that Puerto Rico or something?
Maybe it is. Yeah, maybe it is. Yeah. Puerto Rico. But yeah, so it's the kind of thing where it's like, these are all things that I would never have even batted an eye at, if this was 2019. I went on, like when I went to LA, for the award show and to see you guys, I just went online, I booked my flight, I got my insurance, and away we went. It wasn't a big deal, but now there's so many variables at play, and I have to make sure that I protect myself as well. And so this is adding just complications, and because it's changing all the time, I have to make sure that I'm up on it. So, and hoping that nothing happens. So it's like, I don't want that. Like, I'm really hoping there isn't a situation where it's like, yeah, okay, we're ready to shoot. It's June now. We're going to shoot in October. This is going to be great. And then all of a sudden something happens in the world and everything's shut down again. And now I can't travel. And you guys, but maybe it'll affect you guys too. And then you got to shut it down. It's so frustrating. And that's where I'm sort of at. And what I'm paying attention to as well is just making sure that obviously my health and safety comes first, but also making sure that, we're doing it the right way, And another thing that people have to understand as well is that, and we face this, as It's Me, Billy, is although it is Dylan's New Nightmare is facing the same thing. Although these are quote unquote fan films, like, you know, Never Hike Alone 2, these are professional productions. And there's a lot of rules and regulations that we have to follow. I mean, this isn't just like shooting on your phone in your backyard with your friends and nobody's going to know. You know, there's a lot of, you know, there are professionals attached to the production. So there are rules and regulations that we have to follow. Not that all professional productions do it. I'm just saying that they're supposed to, and you're supposed to follow those rules and regulations because we're setting the example. And even though we were able to shoot It's Me, Billy here, we still had to follow the rules and regulations that were set in place by the Ministry of Labour of Ontario as it relates to film and television production, because we're using professional actors and professional crew and professional equipment. And I mean, it's, you know, we're not just kind of going, hey, let's just go make a movie. You know, so that's something that you have to keep in mind too. So it's totally understandable in Cecil's position. He's got to think about that kind of stuff. He's like, well, listen, I got to think about this. I'm taking care of people here. You know, they're my responsibility for the week. I'm the producer, I'm the director. You know, Vince is no doubt thinking about that. He's a pro. You know, he's thinking about those things and how can we handle this, which is what myself and Bruce had to do as well. I mean, we had a crew and a cast. We had 20 people, you know, and they're our responsibility.
Yeah, you guys are all involved. You guys all deal with your own crews of people on a semi-regular basis. So it's like, you know, exposure to you can fuck up 100%. Everyone else's projects too. And it's like
100%.
I have to be aware and I have to be safe. Yeah. And I refuse to try and be irresponsible about it. I mean, that's the problem. Like, I do hate that it's been delayed as much as it has, but at the same time, I just really hope everyone understands the reasoning for the delays. And, you know, the money's still in the account. It hasn't moved at all. So so Evil Alex asked a question that I will be addressing because he's on to what I'm getting towards. But Hans Gruber says, looking at AZ's rules for a Canadian inbound, a negative COVID test taken within 3 days of departure is required, but no mention of quarantine.
Okay.
So we would obviously have to double check that, but I appreciate Hans doing the early legwork for us on that. So
I'll double check it.
But so I mean, that does kind of lead into what I was going to ultimately say is that we are planning to do one more campaign for the project. So essentially, we missed out on 25% of our original budget the first time. So we're going to try and raise the remainder of that, the 10,000 that we missed the first time. And then anything beyond that, we can try and put towards any of this extra transportation stuff that we're going to run into, possible extra PPE stuff that we might need, you know, depending on how much this second campaign raises, will determine, you know, if we raise a bunch of extra, if we raise like, you know, if we need 10 to cover the remainder of our stuff, plus a little bit extra for some expenses that have popped up, you know, since that campaign. If we ended up raising like 20, then we might be able to go sooner than we think, you know?
That's right.
You know, I think we should let the fans speak, you know, and because I've had a lot of people reach out saying, hey, I missed the campaign. We ran the campaign at a really inopportune time of the year during the winter. I mean, to be perfectly honest. So running a campaign in the spring, summertime will likely, you know, help out as well and give people that we're trying to save up for the holidays, our first campaign, you know, a chance to jump on and support and who knows, maybe get the cameras rolling a little bit faster than we would have otherwise.
Right.
So that is the plan. As far as when we would launch it, I would say I'll try and do it maybe May. That's what I'm kind of thinking. So I have time to get everything together, May or June. But that's what I would think. I'll probably try and aim for May. Hopefully by then, things have loosened up a little bit more because basically once things have loosened up to where we're comfortable setting the schedule, we're going to schedule it for 3 months after that point.
Right.
Because we need to give Miko a chance to get back into the groove, arrange for all of his safe, you know, travel and where we're going to put him up and all that. But as well as, you know, dive back into the character since it's been so long since we went through everything the first time. We just want to get, you know, make sure Nora has enough time to finish everything, make sure Wardrobe has enough time to finish everything since we'll have an actual date at that point. So yes, we'll probably launch the campaign at the start or, near the beginning of that 3-month window.
Right.
So that's the plan right now. I don't think we may not do a 60-day campaign. We may just do a 30-day campaign this time.
Right.
But that is the plan. We will be doing one more campaign to try and, again, raise the remainder of the budget that we missed the first time, as well as cover any extra costs for the PPE stuff and all of that. So that is the plan. So, I hope that everyone understands and everyone can get on board. I think it's a completely viable option.
I think so too. And I want to just say that, I appreciate everybody's patience as well. I appreciate the professionalism from Cecil and Vince and Renee and everybody down there as well, and their understanding, of course, of the predicament I'm in, and I mean, I can't wait to get down there and do this. And it's just, but everybody's been fucked over by this in one way or another. I mean, we're all sort of making sacrifices and rearranging our schedules and trying to adjust certain things. And, it's insane. And, but we're working hard behind the scenes and there's a lot that goes on. If only people knew how much actually does go on behind the scenes. It isn't necessarily out in the day to day, it's just, it's almost like, it's intense, but, I'm looking forward to it, man. I think this is going to be a really fun experience to bring this character, back and to life and it's big shoes to fill, but I'm up for the task. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and like I said, and I've said this before, and it's totally true. And I mean, obviously I haven't met everybody yet, that will be working on the film in terms of crew, but half the battle, I say this, it's true. Half the battle of success is surrounding yourself with the right people, and everybody
extra
that I've
budget
seen
can go towards hiring extra good people
that,
as well.
True. Absolutely. It's amazing. People don't understand it to do. Yes, you can shoot a movie. You can shoot a feature film for $10 if you want to, but to shoot a professional production with a crew and actors and it costs money. It costs a lot of money, and I'm excited to be a part of it. I can't wait to dive into Frederick Krueger.
Oh, I'm excited too. And to that end, we can maybe whet their appetites a little bit with the fact that you and I are going to be hanging after the stream a little bit to discuss something else that we have brewing, because we want to, if we're going to launch another campaign, we want to try and present at least something of new material to show you guys.
Right.
Obviously we haven't shot the movie yet, so it'll be another teaser sort of thing that we'll have to kind of shoot, but we're trying to think creatively in what we can present you guys to help draw, some extra funds our way. Evil Alex asked, what time of the year is the film based? That luckily it's based in LA. So it doesn't matter what time of year, just like here in Arizona, we don't really have seasons per se. It always kind of looks the same. So it always kind of looks how we need it to look, I should say. So we can shoot it in the winter, we can shoot it in the dead of summer. All that's going to change is the miserableness of my crew, because Arizona summers get pretty roasty. But luckily, we're not really outside for much of the movie, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't think you're outside unless it's just establishing shots of stuff.
Yeah,
I don't think any scenes take place outside, do they?
I don't think so, but I mean, let's not ruin anything.
No. I know. I'm just thinking.
No, I know. But I started us down this train.
Yeah, you did.
So.
Yeah, I blame you. I blame you.
But I'm excited to have you on still, and I'm excited to see, what we can do. I'm excited that you're as into the physicality of Freddy as the vocal parts of Freddy. Like, you understand that he is, of anyone in not only horror, but of many characters in film, period, his physicality is tied so closely with his vocality, but also both are as of equal importance.
100%. and
compared to a lot of other characters in film.
That's it. And, you know, obviously Robert Englund and I have two different body shapes. He was more lanky and skinny. I'm a little more stockier than Englund was. But having said that, it really is about, you know, again, it's not about, and I say this, and this is for whoever ends up playing Freddy. Maybe it might be me. I don't know. You never know. But in terms of like in a canon film, who knows what's going to happen? I mean, I'm available anyway. So
stranger things have happened, you know?
I'm just saying I'm available. You know, we can talk. We can talk. My phone's right here. Just give me a call. But the point I'm making is that whoever it is, and that's the mind frame that I'm going in on, is that it's not about doing a Robert Englund impression. It's about bringing the essence of the character there. So although Robert Englund and I are pretty much the same height, I know online it says he's like 5'11". He's not 5'11". But in terms of like the size, physique, it's about that physicality. It's about bringing the essence of the character there so that when you look at him, you go, that's Freddy Krueger. You know, it's not like, you know, you might not think it's Robert Englund, but you go, that's Freddy, whether that's the voice, whether that's the physicality and the way that maybe I smile in the makeup with my lips closed, you know, or something like that, you know, doing one of these and, you know, the kind of things with the makeup on, or, you know, whether, you know, it's my eyes really big, whatever it is, it's everything. And so you look at it and you go, that's Freddy Krueger. It doesn't have to be Robert Englund. That's what people don't understand. It doesn't have to be Robert Englund. He's not the only one that can do it. You know what I mean? It's about bringing the essence of the character there. And, you know, say what you want about the movie as a whole, or Disney Star Wars, or like, you know, whatever the case is. When I watched Solo, and this is my opinion, of course, but when I watched Solo, I thought to myself, that's Han Solo. No, it's not Harrison Ford. It's not Harrison. And yes, did it help that it kind of looked like a young Harrison Ford? Sure, that always helps, 100%. But it was more than just that. It was the way, I forget the kid's name now, Ehrenreich, or whatever his name was.
Alden Ehrenreich.
I think it was.
Maybe, I don't know. Maybe I just
maybe
put all those words
I can't remember, but I think that was his name. But the thing that I admired is that it was the coy little grins. It was the smirk. It was the way that he had Ford's shy, vulnerable, yet cool, calm, and collected ness about him in certain situations. I believe, no, it didn't look exactly like Harrison Ford, but I thought that's Han Solo at 21 years old. I believe that. I believe that. He's got the essence there that I believe that. Did he sound exactly like Han Solo from A New Hope? Well, no, of course not, because he's not Harrison Ford. But I believed it. And that's what it's about. In anything you do. You know, it's like James Jude Courtney with Myers. Was it exactly like Nick Castle? Well, no. But looking at it, I was like, despite the fact that he is a bit taller, okay, but I believe that that's the same man. I did not believe that, you know, George P. Wilbur was the same guy. I didn't believe that, you know, Chris Durand was necessarily the same guy. I believe I can, you know, and then of course you have everything around the character firing on all cylinders. And if I can bring the essence, and then I'm face to face with Miko and he's playing, you know, Dylan, and I'm there and I'm like, skin the cat, you know, and then it's everything that gets into your brain going, oh yeah, this is it. You know what I mean? It's everything firing. So, yeah, it's about that essence, and the physicality, as Cecil said, is a huge part of that. Huge part of that.
And I am purposely involving all of that in the script. Like, I know what the character of Freddy needs, and what I have been very happy about, believe it or not, and maybe this is admitting a shortcoming that I, you know, had. I have been taking the time to really dive into the script as far as formulating my shots go.
Right.
Before, had we not had this, the shots for this movie would have, I mean, I don't know for certain, because obviously Renee hadn't, you know, we hadn't really gone into it all yet. And I'm sure he would have had his suggestions, and probably Vince too. And I'm a collaborative filmmaker, so I take on, you know, advice sometimes. But since then, I've had a lot of time to really, you know, kind of study things a little bit more, especially study Wes and his work, to try and make sure that it feels still like it's in the vein of what Wes would have done. You know,
right.
will never ever compare myself to him, but I am trying to strive for that feel. But now, you know, and even with some other movies that I've experienced in the time, and some new ways of breaking down movies that I've stumbled into and things like that. Like now I have ideas for how I want shots to happen, because I want to evoke a feeling that the character is supposed to have through the audience. You know what I mean? And all of that stuff is not stuff I was necessarily considering before now. But now I want to make sure that it has those layers of storytelling, you know, that good films do have. And while I'm saying this, I'm a little ashamed to admit that I wasn't thinking that way before, but I'm happy that I'm thinking that way now. And I'm confident that it's going to be all the better for it. And continuing on, it's never even going to be a question to not do it this way going forward. So that's the nice thing. You know?
And it's a learning process. I mean, the more prepared you are, the more prepared you are with your vision, the more successful you'll be in its execution. You know, and I say to people all the time, I mean, you can't be getting to set and then figuring out how you're going to shoot the movie. You know, you need to know, and that's why there's a shot list and how people go about that. I mean, there is a specific formula or format for a shot list, but everybody can do whatever they want, you know, as long as you know how you're going to shoot the movie, because you don't want to spend an hour figuring that out when you get there. That's why people location scout, so they know where all, you know, what amps the place has in terms of, you know, electricity and power, and where is the box to turn the breakers in case a breaker goes out, so you know where that is, and you know, and you can look at the windows, and you can look at the carpet, and you can look at the, you know, see where. That's why you do that. That's why you did that, so you can figure this out, you know, before, so that when you, and it doesn't mean things won't change or problems won't come up. That always happens, but you're prepared. And you know that when you get to set, you can say to your crew, okay, here's what's happening. Here's what we're doing. Let's do it. And then you start setting up for that shot, you know, and not necessarily figure, okay, so here we are. So this is the such and such scene. So how do you guys want to shoot this? You know, I mean, it's like, what do you mean? How do we want? I don't know. How do you want to shoot it?
Yeah,
you know,
that would be that. See, it wouldn't have been that bad. Like I would have had a shot list.
Yeah.
No. And I would admit if it was, I would have had a shot list, but the shot list, it would have been just because it's what played in my head, as opposed to me thinking. Like that's how I write. Right. I watch the movie in my head and I write down what I'm seeing. Like it's weird, but that's how it works for my writing. Yeah, it's the same. And so but admittedly, that's first pass camera work material in my head. You know what I mean? So I feel like that would have been what we would have gotten were it not for me taking the time to be like, okay, I got this time. Let me really, really dive in and think about this and elevate it above everything else I've ever shot. Right. And that's, I think, where I've gotten as far as the development of the camera, you know, work we're going to be doing. And that's why it's such an important relationship. The director and the DP have arguably the most important relationship on any set, because then it's your DP who you work with, who takes the shot list, looks at it, you discuss it, and then he or she knows, you know, what lenses to use. How am I going to achieve this look for Cecil? What lighting, what is my gaffer or my key grip? I mean, what are we going to need to bring this vision to life? And that was a great experience, you know, working with Greg on It's Me, Billy, and we got together with him. I mean, he came over to Bruce's place, and we sat there for about 4 or 5 hours and went through the shot list, and he had notes and everything, and we were discussed, so he knew how to bring our vision to life, you know, at the same time while adding his own stamp on it. So yeah, it's you know, when you're shooting a movie professionally, it takes this is the stuff you have to go through. It's not just, you know, get your friends together, pick up your camera and go. There's a that's why these movies look as good as they do, is because they're fan films in maybe genre, but I mean, but like, you know, as I've often said, and Vince, I'm sure would say the same thing. I'm sure you would say the same thing. I don't want to speak for you guys, but you know, if It's Me, Billy had been another movie called, I don't know, Attack of the Killer Water Bottles or something, I mean, we would have gone through the process the same way. You know, we would have, it doesn't matter if it's a fan film, it's
it's a professional shoot, indie shoot, and it just happens to be a fan film, but it's not. We're still going through the same processes that you would in any film. So
and it's kind of like, so before, I guess my thinking was like, the camera is just capturing the story being told. That's the way I was kind of looking at it. Just, put it in the right place to capture it in a pretty way. But when you start to look at filmmakers that take the extra step, most specifically Nolan, he goes so far. It's like his script is telling a story, his acting is telling a story, his directing is telling a story, and his camera work is telling a story. And luckily, they all are harmoniously adding to the same overall story, right?
Right.
But a lot of times, it's the script is telling a story, the actors are doing their best to do that, the camera work's just kind of showing it,
right?
And the directing is shown through the acting, right? So it can sometimes just be pieces of that, and just trying to think more like that instead of more like just having it be a window into the story, I think is God, it's just elevating things, and I'm excited about it. I'm excited to show what's going on in my head, and so once we can get going, I think more's the better for the time we've had.
I got you. Let's switch gears here a little bit. I
Yep.
want to ask you your thoughts on the Texas Chainsaw Massacre sequel that is in, I guess it's in, I thought they were already shooting this thing, but I guess it's still in pre-production or they're about to shoot it or whatever the case is. I forget I thought they had already started. Anyway,
let me guess. They're calling it Texas Chainsaw 2021.
No, I think it's just the Texas Chainsaw Massacre at the moment.
I thought we were just going straight Halloween 2018.
I think they are, though, because it's been revealed, and some people have mistakenly thought that what's her face there, who played
Sally,
the original Marilyn. What's her face? God, why am I forgetting her last name? Anyway, she actually the original Sally. That was in the 1974 original. She actually passed away in 2014. So there have been people that have said that have seen headlines from the various horror outlets that have said that the original character of Sally is returning, and I think people have mistakenly thought that the original actress is returning, and she's not. She unfortunately passed away in 2014. But they are bringing back the original character of Sally. And I suspect that this Burns, that's it. Thanks. Marilyn Burns. That's right. She passed away in 2014. Well, they're bringing the character back of Sally. And I believe it's a direct sequel to the original only. So I think they are sort of pulling the Halloween 2018 thing here, pretending that all the other sequels and remakes and reboots don't exist. And they're doing a direct sequel to the original only. And I don't know. I mean, I'm, again, they're all saying the right things here. I mean, they're all, let's see here. Let me just bring it up here. I want to just, let me go to news.
I mean, this is even a bigger stretch than, because we're talking old man Leatherface at this point.
Yeah, this is 3 days ago here. So this is from Screen Rant, but the various outlets picked it up. So Texas Chainsaw Massacre 9, they're calling it 9, but I think it's a sequel, is bringing back the final girl from the original movie. Released in 1974, Tobe Hooper's The Texas Chainsaw Massacre introduced the iconic movie Leatherface, blah, blah, blah. We know that. Alvarez, of course, was the director responsible for a noted horror revisit, the 2013 Evil Dead remake. So Alvarez, who directed the Evil Dead remake in 2013, is helming this sequel. Yeah, and they're bringing back Sally. And as far as we know, this is a direct sequel to the original. And Sally is being played by Olwen Foray? It's French. Okay. It looks like French. Or it could be, she's an Irish actress. Now, looking at her, if you were to bring her up on her screen, looking at her, just looking at how she looks, I could believe that is Sally from the 1974 film. I assume she'll be doing an American accent, despite the fact that she's Irish. but I don't know. I want to get your thoughts on it. I'm kind of like, I think what it is, again, they're saying all the right things. You know, they're saying, where is it here? They're saying, reboots already beginning Hooper's. Yeah, they're just talking about I thought they had a quote from Alvarez. That Alvarez and Garcia are bringing Ferrari to play Sally Hardesty for their stabs at a Texas Chainsaw Legacy sequel is interesting to note, as it indicates the movie will try harder than Texas Chainsaw 3D. Well, sure, okay. To preserve some kind of non-ridiculous continuity with the original film. How expansive Sally's role will be does, of course, remain to be seen. That's something to keep in mind, too. Is it Texas Chainsaw, sequel starring Sally, or is she just going to have a cameo in it? It's kind of like a passing of the torch. Is it totally...
It's going to be her daughter and granddaughter.
Yeah. Right. I don't know. I see this. I'm somebody, I don't know. And maybe I did. Maybe you have said this to me before. I can't remember. I enjoy the first Texas Chainsaw. I think it's good for its time. I think it's one of those early 70s exploitative sort of horror movies, although it didn't have hardly any blood in it whatsoever. But exploitative in the way that we hadn't really seen a horror movie that was that, and chainsaw running through the bushes and things like that. I think it's a little dated now, as a lot of the 70s films are. But it certainly cannot be understated the influence of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, how it influenced a generation of filmmakers, specifically horror filmmakers. But Leatherface, for me, in the Texas Chainsaw franchise has never really, and it's because part 2 is like this weird hybrid, and then 3 is 3 what it is. And I know, but I think you know what I'm saying. Like it's got a different feel and tone. It's never really been able to get out from under its own sort of unusual shadow and where the series went.
That's a really good way of putting it.
Yeah, and I think what it is there was never really a progression. Like usually when series become strange, it's a gradation. It's a gradual sort of, 1 is really good, 2 is maybe not as good as 1, but it's kind of cool. And then 3, and I know I know people love 2, but 2 is very different in terms of tone from the original film. And usually you don't see that level of change until like part 4 or 5 or something like that, right? When you look at Elm Street, you don't see Freddy become really until 4, right? I mean, full on. Same with Jason. You don't see, and then, it's usually 5, 6, and then it really starts, the first 4 Fridays are pretty consistent in their tones and that they take themselves fairly seriously. Sure, they're cheesy in some regard, right? Halloween 1, of course, is, then you got 2, but then 3, and then 4. It's usually 5, 6, then you start to see the change. Chucky 1 is really good. 2 is, a little more, but then it's like Seed of Chucky or Bride is where you see the change. Texas, not so much. Texas was, you had a really, and then all of a sudden it's like, fuck it, we're just going to get crazy in the sequel. And then they went the other direction for 3. Exactly. And so there's been this weird sort of yo-yo with Texas Chainsaw that I've never really been able to get on board. And it feels like Leatherface, he's sort of kind of been playing catch up in some ways. Like, what are you? Is this serious? Is this satirical? Is this, how do you feel about this series and this news that there could be a direct sequel to the original, supposedly taking itself seriously with Sally Hardesty returning? So,
there's a lot to touch on there.
Let me do that again. So, no, go ahead.
My feelings on the Texas Chainsaw franchise, I feel, are relevant. So allow me to start there. I've always liked the first one. It's never been one of my favorites, but it always was disturbing. It always did have a disturbing lack of gore, but it did a better job to me with its production value. Oh, let me not say that. Let me say set dress, set design and set dress did more to scare me in that movie than anything else. Obviously, Leatherface was scary. And I think the thing that freaked people out the most, why it stuck out in my head as gory, even though it wasn't, was when he hacks up the kid in the wheelchair. And you see it from behind, so you don't see any gore, and it's at night, and it's just the one light source.
Yeah.
You don't really see it that well, but you see Leatherface doing this in front of a kid in a wheelchair going like this.
Right.
And it's like, that's disturbing shit.
It is disturbing shit. Yeah.
So I like that, but I got to say, I was always a bigger fan of 2. And that might go down to the fact that 2 was one of the early horror movies I remember watching at, like, I went to a party with a bunch of guys from school. It was a sleepover party, and so the parents allowed him to get a couple of horror movies, and so Texas Chainsaw 2 was one of them. And so that scene on the highway at the beginning when he literally saws through the top of the truck and like a quarter of the dude's head comes off,
which is awesome,
and it's just spraying. It was like, oh, that's badass. And then of course you get Chop Top and, like, you know, hammering the dude over and over again. And I was actually a big fan of the lunacy of 2. I feel like that's the thing,
right?
To me, Texas Chainsaw comes down to the lunacy. And so, like, they kind of Evil Dead to Evil Dead 2'd Texas Chainsaw and Texas Chainsaw 2.
So you think that's where they should have stuck instead of going back to the more serious tone in 3?
I think so, because I hated 3. I thought 3 was the one that kind of deviated most from the formula, where you didn't really get, it wasn't people running afoul of Leatherface and his crazy family. That was the one where it was just, you're stuck out more in the woods, and it's the crazy family after people, but it's mostly in the woods. I just wasn't a big fan of 3. And then 4 was basically like, Texas Chainsaw has the most installments within itself that is basically redoing the story from 1 in a slightly different way.
Right.
But even
the reboots, I mean,
but that's the thing. I actually really liked the 2003 reboot with Jessica Biel.
Oh, I do too. I do
Arlie
too.
Ermy and all those guys.
Yep.
I actually liked the Texas Chainsaw 3D, where we got introduced to Alexandra Daddario.
The only thing I don't like about that movie is they made Leatherface an anti-hero in some respects, and made him a little more sympathetic, or trying to get the audience to feel sympathy for him. And I'm like, hang on a sec here. This guy, I don't think it should go that way. I don't think we should be feeling any sympathy. I mean, listen, there are a lot of people out there that are, and maybe it's because I'm taking it too seriously, but it's like when abusers become, or when the abused become the abuser, right? Whether it's sexual, whether it's physical, you know, whatever the case is, there comes a certain point in your life where you can look at and go, well, you know, Johnny so-and-so was sexually abused as a child, and that is awful. And I don't wish that on any child. And it's terrible. It's awful. That really sucks. But that's no excuse for being a 40-year-old man abusing children. That might be the why. It might be why he's mentally ill, and why it might be why, but it's not a path. Oh, well, I mean, you know, that, okay, well, we can't go down too hard on him because he was abused as a kid. No,
it's
sorry.
Not a path to redemption.
It's not a path to redemption, right? No. So I think it's like, although I really liked the opening of Texas 3D, where they were back in 74 and they sort of that was really cool to see. It was very, very cool to see. The production design was great. The set deck was great. It was really, really cool. But the story, and, you know, to introduce you know, the sister or whatever, okay. But then to make Leatherface sort of like, we should be feeling sorry for him. I'm just kind of like, he's murdered a lot of people.
Yeah.
You know, like, I mean, and in devastating ways. Anyway.
Yeah, well, and that's also what I liked about it. I mean, again, that's the other part of 1 that everyone thinks is gory, that it's actually not, is when he puts her on the hook. No gore is shown, but it's still disturbing as hell.
It is. Because you see it coming. You're like, oh, fuck.
Yeah, exactly. And then when she tries to pull herself off and, like, settles back onto it more and shit, like, that's just the worst.
The best stuff, man.
But this new one, right? So here's my problem at its core. The first one took place in 1974. It's supposed to be a direct sequel. So now we're
by all accounts is what I can see.
47 years later.
Yeah.
47 years later. Leatherface did not strike me as a dude in his 20s in the first movie. He was definitely in his 30s, if not 40s.
Yeah.
And he was built like me. Yeah. And let's be honest, guys built like me don't make it much past their 60s, let alone into his 80s is what he'd be. And we sure as shit don't move like you'd need to move as Leatherface in order to hack up little kiddies. You know, like they'd have to, like, he'd have to be like King Conan on one throne, and people just bring victims to him, and he just, like, he's the grandpa now, right? He should be the grandpa, except instead of the hammer, he just has his chainsaw, and his family's like, here you go, Leatherface, and he's just like,
that's it.
Like, that's all it would be at this point.
Okay, sit there for me, please.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is, again, exactly. Like, it's so anyway, like, I'm down for the idea, and here's where it's incongruous for me. like the story seems silly because there's no way A, he'd be alive, and B, that he'd be formidable in his 80s. But on the other hand, Fede Alvarez kicked ass with that Evil Dead remake in 2013. I loved that remake. And he went on to do Don't Breathe, and that was very good, well done movie.
Yeah, Don't Breathe was fantastic.
Would have seen the sequel, but we were literally the product of ageism from the marketing company. Yeah. So yeah, we intend to make a video about that too. But nonetheless, Fede is a very talented director, and I believe that he got the down and dirty nastiness of Evil Dead, and so I think he could definitely get the down and dirty nastiness of Texas Chainsaw. But why hamstring yourself with the realities of the time frame? You know what I mean?
Right. And no, I agree. And again, there haven't been too many details that have been released about the direction and what they're doing. But certainly you bring up a lot of good points, you know, and it's like, you know, what is the story going to be? And then you have to ask yourself, what's the end game, right? Is it going to be quick and dirty like Halloween, where they have Halloween kills, Halloween ends, or you get 3 movies that are happening the same night? So you get this big sort of rush of stuff, but, you know, not necessarily anything beyond that, because what are you going to do? Fast forward 10 years now, Michael's 75, and there's a shelf life for these characters. So let's say, you know, Leatherface is 75 already. Let's say he's already into his 70s now, right? What's the shelf life of, so you get this sequel, it's great. Well, where do you go from there? It's inevitable that you're either going to have to rush out some sequels that all happen in a short period of time of each other, so he doesn't age too much, or you're going to have some sort of passing of the torch of some kind, you know, to a younger Leatherface, you know, that can keep this thing going. I don't know. I'm always thinking like that.
He will have had to lose weight. Like, in order to still be alive, he can't be the big imposing Leatherface. Like, or all big people deflate in their 40s if they want to stick around. Look at all the big celebrities that were big. They all have to deflate themselves in their 40s and 50s to keep around.
I think the most important question, and chat room, let me know if you're watching after the fact. Let me know down in the comments section. Do we know absolutely, not, I think maybe, no, do we know absolutely when this Texas Chainsaw will be taking place? Because that is really the first thing we need to know. Because maybe it's not 2021, maybe it's 2000. And maybe, so it's Sally is older, Leatherface is older as well, but maybe it's, I don't know. I'm not saying it is. From everything that I've seen, no. I'm not saying they're doing that. But from everything I've seen,
I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to like, come at you. It's just like,
yes, production value. Yes, you were. Yes, you were. No.
Yeah, the magical 2000s when everyone wants to set their movie.
It's totally true. Nobody gives a fuck. Nobody gives a fuck about the 2000s. Who the hell sets movies? Hey, you want to have it happen in 2002? No. Dude,
so the 2000s and 2010s are the most personality-less decades of like any of them.
In terms of fashion, in terms of music,
it's
in terms
crazy.
Of everything. It's totally true. So I don't know, you know, and I only say that because they say direct sequel to the original. They're casting this Irish actress who looks herself like she's in her 60s. So, I mean, I would imagine. And again, I don't know if she definitely is. Maybe she's only in her 50s, but she's got long white hair from the photos I've seen. So, you know, I don't know. But I'm just saying it's going to be sometime later. So you're right. That's the question. When? Frank says within 10 years. Darren Sand says 47 years later, according to IMDb. Now, IMDb isn't, of course, that's like, you know, the Wikipedia of movies. So you have to take that with a grain of salt.
You could also just take 1974 away from 2021 and you get 47 as well, but you know.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's no. Yeah, no. I get that. But I just mean, is it going to be 47 or is it going to be 10 years? Is it going to be 20 years, right. 30 years?
It is a valid question that I hadn't considered that. They make it sound like we're doing a sequel to the original. It's such a weird thing to exclaim if you're not doing it set today, though, right?
100%. And I think, and listen, I got to be honest, and studio executives, they do see this because they only care about the bottom line.
Wait. Sorry, Dave. Go ahead. Finish your point. A commenter got me distracted. I apologize.
Okay.
Go ahead.
No problem. No problem. I was just going to say that it's important to remember that, Halloween 2018, regardless of what you thought of it in terms of its quality, folks, has become the highest grossing slasher movie in motion picture history, grossing $250 something million at the box office. Well, that cannot be understated in the fact that, but then again, Michael Myers isn't Leatherface. He's more popular, arguably, in terms of more of a pop culture footprint. But studio executives will see this and they'll say, hey, maybe we can Halloween 2018 this. It wouldn't surprise me at all if that happened with, Freddy or it happened with Jason once the lawsuit is settled, and sort of doing direct sequels to the more beloved of the franchise, bringing original characters back and picking up some years later. I'm not saying they're all going to do that, but that's what Halloween did. It looks like that's what Texas is doing. Scream is
That's what I'm doing.
That's what you're doing. That's what I did. Although I didn't. Well, anyway, the whole thing is but it's got to be done in a way that I don't know. Well, I wouldn't put us on that map though. You're doing one to a meta film. I'm doing one to the only one. There are no other. We are
continuing the original story years later, and in my case with original actors.
Yes. That we are, and it's the kind of thing where, but there are some of them that negate all these sequels. Some of them beloved, and they're doing a direct to the original, and I don't know. I mean, it's Leatherface. It's going to have to be really good. 2003 Texas on steroids. That's what it's going to have to be in order to get people really to buy into this. Because if it's just sort of like 2003, but not as good, well, then you'll just watch the 2003 one. That's
the thing. 2003 was such a quality remake that they can't really remake it again. Now we're literally just retreading the same shit. So that's probably why they're going back to the sequel. But Bobby's brother just put out, this is what I reacted to. He said from Wikipedia, so grain of salt territory. But the film's plot will focus on Leatherface, who is now 60 years old and will take place 47 years after the events of the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So that puts him at 13 in his original movie.
13? No, that would have put him at...
If it says that he's 60 years old and it takes place 47 years later...
You're right.
That makes him 13 years old in the original movie.
13? That
can't be right.
He didn't strike me as somebody who was 13.
No, hell no. So that's what I'm saying. Something, obviously, again, Wikipedia, grain of salt territory, but he can't be 60. But I thought I heard a 60-year-old thing in an article as well. So, that's what I'm saying. He's got to be in his 80s.
His 60s? Maybe he's 68. And then that makes him closer.
Still makes him 21 in the first movie?
It's true, but at least it's more believable than 13.
More believable, but we're still in the stretched area there.
Yeah.
But, so I guess
That's
I'm not against the idea of it. I have to see how they're doing it, and I'm very for the director of it. So I don't know. Yeah. It's a weird mixed bag for me.
So what are your thoughts on Scream 5? Scream 5 coming out January 2022. These are my thoughts. I'll give you my thoughts, and I'll get your thoughts. For some reason, I'm going to say the crowd. The viewers know my thoughts, but just to reiterate quickly, I like the first Scream. I like that movie. I don't love it. I don't think it's, incredible, but I like that movie. I think it was fun. It was good for its time. It definitely, you cannot understate that it gave the slasher subgenre a little bit of life in the late 90s. And certainly with, Scream 2, I Know What You Did Last Summer, I Still Know What You Did Last Summer, Urban Legends, Halloween H2O. I mean, there was some life with horror again as the horror pretty much died in the late 80s, early 90s. There was some life. And certainly, I think it's a good movie. It's a fun movie. It's a spoofy, not spoof. It's not a spoof film, but there's some spoofy-ish things in it. Very self-aware. And it's poking fun at the genre. It's fun to watch. If you don't take it too seriously, it's fun. But I've never really, I don't hate them like I loathe something like Halloween 5 or something, but I've never really enjoyed the sequels that much. I've never, and I don't know if it's because Ghostface really isn't somebody. He's everybody or anybody. So he's never really this person that is this one thing that you can become attached to, and that he's got some sort of, he's anybody and everybody, whoever you want it to be. And that's cool for one movie. It's like Clue, like who done it? You know what I mean? And but to go off and believe that these characters are getting involved in the same shenanigans again, over and over again, I have trouble with. Now, with Scream 5, I liked 4 over 3, but Scream 5 coming out, it's years later, they're bringing the band back together again. We know that it's going to be following this young girl and blah, blah, blah. But with Sydney involved, my thoughts are, how are the legacy characters involved? Because when it comes to Sydney, if you're going to have her as a main player, and maybe this news is out there now that she's not a main player, it's a cameo, I have no idea. But I'm just thinking off the top of my head, when the news first broke, I thought, I find the believability for me that this character is continuing to find herself in this situation is getting a little more and more unbelievable for me. It would have to be, I thought that Scream 5 would have been great. And tell me what you think of this. They're not going to do this, but I think this would have been great. Scream 5
I have an idea, and I have a feeling we're going to be similar.
Okay, Scream 5 always opens, at least I think it does. Maybe it doesn't. But anyway, the first one did, at the very least, opens with like a prologue, right? You have like 10 minutes. You're introduced to a character. They end up dying, right? And then you get into the new story. I think to bring some weight and some bottom, they would never do this, and it fucking sucks. I don't want that to happen. Shut up. You don't know what's good for you. Anyway, so I think Scream 5 would have been great to open up with the character, let's say, of Dewey. And there's like, it's back in Woodsboro or whatever. He's there. He's a lifer. Okay. He's a lifer. Sydney's not there. She's moved on. Maybe Gail's not there. She got a job at some news anchor in some big city or something, right? They're no longer there. Okay. But Dewey's a lifer. He's there. He's the sheriff. He's a little older now. There's a murder that takes place. And there hasn't been a murder in Woodsboro in maybe quite some time, right? And he goes to investigate. He winds up on scene. It's nighttime, wherever the murder is. He goes to investigate. He ends up being murdered by Ghostface. And he comes face to face with Ghostface. The audience gets an opportunity to see that moment, to see the look on his face, coming face to face with Ghostface. All those memories flood back, the nostalgia. We as an audience are like, oh my God, there he is, Dewey and Ghostface. Holy shit. And he kills Dewey. It gives the story some bottom. That is the only thing. Now, unless this is a story about how it's Sydney's daughter that gets involved and she comes home from college and unless they're going to just do that cliche thing, I don't know. But there's got to be some sort of bottom and weight. For me, when I think about this off the top of my head, that would justify Sydney getting back into the fold. And the only thing if she doesn't live in Woodsboro anymore, why would she go back? We know why she went back but I just think you need some weight. You need some bottom. You need to take those risks to bring because Sydney then hears that Dewey has died. I think that and under suspicious circumstances, and now they don't have a sheriff. They don't know what to do, what's going on. Maybe Gail hears about it because she works for, you know what I mean? And they bring them back in that sort of way. I've always thought that would be an interesting, more believable way to bring those legacy characters back into the fold. What do you think of that?
I think at this point, I feel like it's been so memed on the fact that the core group are untouchable that, yeah, you have to kill one at the very beginning of the new movie. And then at that point, it becomes who is the most expendable in that way. And I think it does become Dewey, but I think that in and of itself would be expected. I think the only way to really do it is to do
Kill
Gail
or even Sydney.
Gail. Did I say Gail? Not Gail. I'm talking about Scary Movie's version of Courtney Cox's character.
But
what is Courtney Cox's character's name? I can't remember.
It's Gail. It is Gail.
It is Gail?
Yeah, it's Gail.
Oh, yeah, okay. Gail Weathers, that's right, because it's Gail Hailstorm in Scary Movie.
Hailstorm.
But nonetheless, so I think it would be most effective if they killed Sydney at the beginning.
You know what? I'm right there. I'm right there. I would
her the Drew Barrymore, because the problem is, go ahead.
I was just going to say, if you and I were hired to write this movie, and you and I right now are having a writer's meeting, and I present to you my idea, which I just did for Dewey, and you said to me, just as you did right now, you know what, Dave, I think maybe we should swap out Dewey for Sidney Prescott. I would say, sold. I would say sold. I'm down. I'm totally down. 100%. That would shut. Now you might see if the movie opens with Sydney, you might go, uh-oh. you know what I mean? But at the same time,
but in the back of your mind, you'd be like, there's no way.
There's no way. And they do it. And, it's not a bad idea. And that brings Dewey and Gale out of the way. It's not bad. Look, it's blasphemous for some people. I understand it because you're emotionally attached to the character. I get it. But man, I'm telling you, this is about creating a good story.
Here's the other way I would go. Okay. You either go with that. And here's the thing, here's the problem with Scream 5. And it happened with Scream 4 and even to an extent Scream 3, right? You have to introduce new characters that end up being the bad guys.
Right.
Someone new that you're introduced in this movie is going to be the bad guy. You're not playing with the legacy characters enough, I think. And they kind of tried to do this in 4, but I think if they're going to do it, you need to have the Ghostface, the guy that has been pulling the strings. That's what I've been saying. Beginning, that does not fucking trip over stuff. He kills people and he doesn't have the foils that all the other ghost faces have. And I would personally love it if that ghost face was one of the core group. I want one of the core group to, and even if it is Sydney, that's just after all these experiences has just been fucking driven batty. Like one of them needs to be the bad guy. That's the only way to have the weight. And again, if they're the person that has just been torturing Sydney years upon years and then giving her little respites, letting her think everything's normal, only to drag her back in every single time. Yep. This being his big, this is the only way I could do it. I can finally reveal myself the 5th time out. This is it. This is the final battle of Ghostface and Nev, and it's the actual Ghostface that is formidable, that has slashed his way through everyone, including 1 or 2 of the core group to get to her by the end. You know what I mean?
Dude, I have been saying what you just said there. I have said on several videos I've done on Scream. I have said exactly that. I think I even made a social media post, and Cecil and I did not compare notes prior to this. I literally have said, and my viewers know this, if you've been watching me for some time, I literally have said, how cool will it be if the Ghostface, the voice you hear on the phone, actually is somebody. He's a real person who's been indoctrinating or influencing people to do his dirty work. He's somebody that comes out of the shadows. Like Cecil said, he's not somebody that's going to be tripping over couches and chairs and furniture. He is sleek and smooth, calculated. He's like nothing we've seen before. And you're right, to then come after Sydney for this epic showdown. You know what? I'm sold on that. The only thing is that then it becomes about the legacy characters again, not so much about the introducing of the new characters. That's all anyone
cares about with this franchise.
I agree. I totally agree. But you know where they are with the studios. They want to pass these torches. They want to have, and then it's like they also want Scream 5, which is why it's just called fucking Scream. They want Scream 5 to be the beginning of another series. They want this to be the beginning of another series. So then where do you go from there? And
why don't you just call it Screams, by the way?
Screams, exactly. Alex Schambach here says, I disagree. Kill Sydney and then have Gale and Dewey still there. I'm not totally against killing Sydney, but give her some further legacy. Well, here's the thing. To me, it's not about killing the character. It's about how you kill the character. It's about story. It's the story around it. You could kill Sydney in the first 10, 15 minutes of that movie, and it's all about how she's killed. What is the character doing? Does she trip over a lamp and bump her head and she's unconscious and dies in the hospital? That's lame. That's lame. You don't do that. Or does she go out sacrificing herself for her child? Does she go out sacrificing herself for a friend? Does she go out in a blaze of glory? That's why listen, Han Solo is my favorite character in the Star Wars universe. It might have something to do with the fact that Harrison Ford is my favorite actor, but nonetheless, love Han Solo. And I didn't want him to die as much as the next person. I didn't want him to die, but in my opinion, the way he went out, that emotional moment between his father and son, and the layers of symbolism that were there and what Kylo was saying, it wasn't just Han Solo tripping on the bridge and falling over and away he goes. There was some depth there. Not all fans liked it. I get it. I understand that. But if you try to remove your subjectivity of your emotional attachment and look at sort of what's being said and the narrative and the symbolism that is in that scene, actually, it's quite deep and it's quite well done. And that's what you do when if you are going to kill a legacy character, you want to give some weight and bottom to it. And you can do that in the first 15 minutes of a movie. It's how you do it. Does it feel earned? Nev has earned that. Nev's been in 4 movies. She's been the star of 4 movies. There's no more legacy she needs. Her legacy, she's a legend already. To continue the legacy is just beating a dead horse as far as I'm concerned. And what else are you going to do that's different other than maybe you do this? Tell me what you think of this.
Wait, just real quick. This is skirting dangerously close to Halloween Resurrection beginning discussions, though, no? Where people are like, what else can you do with Jamie Lee Curtis? We got to offer at the beginning.
It's a fair point.
How it's done, right?
It's how it's done. And it's a fair point that you just brought up. It's how it's done, right? Or what you think of this. Well, what do you think of this? Maybe you don't kill her in the beginning. You make this film about her, right? It's about her, but it feels different. It feels earned. It feels better because you are bringing the Ghostface out of the shadows now. So that's the caveat. That's the hook, right? It's about that, but Ghostface wins. The end of the movie, Ghostface kills Sidney, and it ends on an epic cliffhanger. Oh my God. You wouldn't see that coming.
No, that'd be great.
I don't think people would see that.
Especially if they pulled it off and it was someone that we know.
Someone that you know. Can you imagine that? And there are fans watching this right now going, oh God. I get it.
How cool would it be if it was Randy that actually survived from 2 and just like kept an eye on things?
Can you imagine? He takes
that would make sense where he like just took his love of film to the whole next level and just built this whole thing.
Oh,
really cool.
And he wasn't actually dead.
Yeah. That'd be fucking cool.
Can you imagine? He takes off. It's Jamie Kennedy, who's been Ghostface the actual Ghostface.
He's like,
the entire time.
I'll show these guys how to do it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
That'd be great.
Always been Randy. It's always been Randy. Can you imagine that?
Oh my
cool. God, that
we have a couple of Scream haters in the comments.
Oh yeah, Frank hates. Yeah, Frank hates Scream.
but yeah, the other thing I was gonna say, what I fear they're gonna do is I fear they're gonna go with like the cult of Ghostface.
Yeah,
where there's gonna be like many people.
They're gonna have like tattoos of the thorn.
Yeah, some shit like that. Like a lot of people will be doing the face, and at the end it'll reveal that like there's so many ghost faces, and you can't beat the cult of Ghostface or some evolution like that.
The cult of Ghostface. Jesus Christ!
And you but it sounds so stupid, but it sounds like something they do, right? Doesn't it? Like I wouldn't put it past Hollywood at all.
100%. I could totally see that happening. Because again, you know, everything we're talking about, because Cecil and I actually care about story and structure. Not that people at the studio level don't, but the thing that is problematic is that, they're not, our ideas are very much, except for the last thing I said there, where him winning at the end, you know, and it turns out to be Randy or whatever. Our idea is sort of like to bring it just to a close completely. You know what I mean? To go out sort of on a high note, which I would be totally down with, but you know that they want to keep this fucking thing going, that this is they're going to reboot this. The legacy characters are just going to be there in the background like, oh, come sit with me. I'll tell you the stories of everything I've been through and I know how to handle it, you know, and then whatever.
There's no such thing as the final chapter.
No, there isn't. And it's so unfortunate. I keep trying to tell, and I think people get it, but I've told, you know, I've preached this on my channel a lot, where there's value in stories ending. You know, there really is. There's value in stories coming to a close. You know, good stories have shelf lives, and it's okay for something to end. And I don't understand this. And again, maybe it's because I have different standards than a lot of fans. I don't know, or just different standards. You know, in terms of what qualities, but I would much rather just watch 3 really great movies than watch 3 really great ones, knowing that there's 19 others that are dog shit. And I got to listen to people talking about, because, and I think we all can agree, yes, there are people that may really, that like Halloween 5 over others, but generally speaking, the general consensus is the more sequels you make, the more dog shit they are. So why continue to make them? I mean, I know why they do it. It's money, right? But I mean, I just wish people could appreciate the value of arcs and things coming to an end and going, wow, what a great story. It's over, you know, rather than just and another cliffhanger, you know, but.
I feel like that's their plan for the new Halloween trilogy. That's the impression that I'm getting, right? But who knows if Halloween Kills, you know, destroys at the box office, then there's no way Halloween Ends is going to end Halloween.
No, and I worry about that. Well, my hope is that it ends Halloween and Michael as we know it. Yeah. So in terms of the story connected to the 78 original, that story is done. If you want to reboot Michael, which I don't know why you would do, because you would have to change it. You would have to change the DNA. You can't reboot Michael 3 years later and have him the same Michael Myers. You're just telling the story over. Well, you can do that. Who the fuck am I? And they do that. But I'm just thinking logically in the terms of why I don't want to see that. You would have to then maybe move the story to streaming or to tell a different side of it or start an anthology, something.
Yeah, evolve it like the third movie was trying to do.
Right. Evolve
right?
Like
it. Go to anthological and tell one like throwback Michael Myers story if you want. You know what I mean? As one of the episodes. But
that's
just to appease those people. But otherwise, start catering to the season of the witch crowd.
100%.
You know, it can be something different, and it's Halloween. You know,
because, and I've said it before, I'll say it again. For all you that just want this to keep going, okay, as long as you understand that if it does keep going, the inevitable will happen. It will become dog shit. It's inevitable. It's inevitable. I'm sorry. And then they've done what they've been trying not to do by negating all the sequels and doing these movies. They just become, now they're dog shit again. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see, 9 movies with James Jude Courtney, as much as I'm sure he would like the cash. From a story perspective, it's like, God, can we end this thing already, please? Anyway.
The only certainties in life are death, taxes, and degrading quality of sequels.
It's totally true. That's good. I haven't heard that. That's good. I like that. Let's take a couple of questions here. There's a couple super chats came in before we wrap it up here. Let me see. Where are we? The super chat questions. There were 2 of them that came in, I believe. Yes, Bud Gumperson sends in a $5.67 super chat. Fascinating. Thank you, Bud. Says, have you two ran into anything while becoming filmmakers that you either didn't expect or didn't find out until beginning the process? That's a good question. Yeah. Jigs. Didn't expect or didn't find out until the beginning of the process. I don't think so. I think there's nothing that I have come into that has, I didn't know that existed, or I didn't know that was a job, or I didn't know that. There hasn't been anything like that. I think the experience of making It's Me, Billy, which is my first time making a movie at this level, it's just been all the things that I studied in film school and things that I've sort of experienced on a minor level when it comes to making movies and things like that, and that I know about just coming to fruition. So just sort of like being like, oh yeah, this is an intense process. And here it is. It's much more intense than it is making your little movie on your DSLR or, with your friends. There's people, there's a crew, there's people depending on you, there's craft services, there's insurance, there's drones, there's this, there's that. It's just what you know to be proven to you. The intensity and the responsibility and the epicness of the scale. And this is just a minor indie shoot. Like I can only imagine, what that is like. That's, times 1,000 when you're working on a crew of like 200 people with, this, like, on a multi-million-dollar project. So for me, there hasn't been anything that's been surprising in terms of, I didn't know about that. Just more things that have been like, oh yeah, okay, here we go kind of thing. What about you, Cecil?
I wouldn't say there's anything that I've run into that I didn't know about per se. Like I've loved movies for so long, and I've been watching behind the scenes stuff for so long that, you hear so many stories. I mean, the special features on DVDs and Blu-rays as I've grown up have made, they're almost like a mini film school if you watch all of them, especially
100%
big releases. And so, yeah, I mean, I was trying to think like, is there anything that really caught me off guard? So something that caught me off guard is not something I didn't know happened. It's something that I knew happened. I just didn't expect to happen to me, let alone so early, was when we shot the first short that I think was our first really positive step forward in filmmaking.
That's
and I
Sweet,
think
right?
Sweet, exactly.
Yeah.
So we actually acquired a Western town. You know, we rented a Western town. We got wardrobe for everyone. It was an Old West vampire story based on a Stephen King co-created property. And what I learned after day one was that one of my speaking roles had not done any kind of practice and had not prepared.
One of the actors, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
And either that or he just was not comfortable on camera. And he had been in something that we had shot before. So I was just like, yeah, come on, be in the new thing with us. And it just, he couldn't get not only couldn't get the lines right, but didn't get the way it was written, couldn't deliver it with the ellipses and a pause here and impact here, was just saying words in a weird rhythm,
right,
rather than what was written. And I'm like, what's going on? And he was like, I'm sorry, man, I just didn't get a chance to practice. I'll work really hard and I promise we'll be good for tomorrow and stuff. So I just kind of shot around him, and then he was a no-show the next day. I think he was just so embarrassed or whatever, but it was kind of a blessing in disguise, because we ended up subbing someone else in that was better and even more imposing. So that was good. But yeah, that was something that I certainly didn't expect to have to deal with, let alone my first real time out. So yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's a good question. New Nightmare. This is Nightly. Hello, Nightly. Great to see you here. Sends in a $9.99 super chat. Says, hey, y'all, I really loved Halloween 2018, but I do think it's kind of annoying how Hollywood has no new ideas, and now Candyman, Texas, and Scream are jumping on that wagon, plus endless remakes. Ugh. I hear you, man. I hear you. Yeah, there seems to, but it's all because people watch it.
I disagree. I don't think Hollywood has no new ideas. Hollywood just caters to where the audience is. That's
true. Well, that is and that's a very valid point, is that there are a lot of original films and stories that come out.
They're just still sitting in script form on their desks.
Or nobody sees it because it's a new movie. It's not Marvel. It's not DC. I want more Marvel. Anyway.
Yeah. I mean, dude, there's more material available on VOD and streaming platforms than there ever has been. And
100%.
much of it is new material. So that's not a valid, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with Hollywood has no new ideas. Yeah. I think they're just test running those ideas on VOD and streaming platforms right now.
Right.
And they're starting to see how well they can do,
in Nightly's defense, though, I think I get what he's saying, is that
absolutely.
I agree, but it's too bad that I think what it is that it's the proper phrasing of it should be, it's too bad more people are not interested in watching a lot of the original content that may be out of your comfort zone. It may not, yes, you have to watch something you're not familiar with actors you've never heard of, with stories you don't know anything about. But if you sit back and you watch it, you will be thoroughly entertained. And I wasn't really crazy on the ending, but I watched a great psychological thriller a couple of weeks ago called, what was it? It was One Bedroom, I think it was called. It's on
1BR, yeah.
Yeah, 1BR. I thought that was fantastic. I thought it was great. It was eerie. It was creepy. Wasn't crazy on the ending. I wanted to, but I liked that it ended with that's it. Oh, because I wanted to see more. I wanted to find out where she, did she reconcile with her? Well, I won't give any spoilers, but anyway, it was good. It was well done, and that's a movie that, I just took a chance on. I was on the couch. I was surfing Netflix. I'm like, 1BR. Oh, interesting. Okay. All right. Okay. What the hell? I'll watch this. Fuck it. I'll watch it. And I really liked it. And more people need to do that. Yes, there are garbage movies you're going to come across. But if you keep doing it on a consistent basis, you're going to find some gems where you're going to go, has anybody seen this? This is actually really good. You know what I mean?
Now, Knightley is right, though. I don't want to say he's wrong. He's right in the fact that theatrical releases are very
that's true
homogenized into what we, it's sequels and prequels and stuff, because that's where they make the most money and that's where the audience is. So Knightley, you're 100% correct as far as that goes. But I just feel like the argument of Hollywood doesn't have any new ideas. I mean, theatrical Hollywood, maybe.
Yeah,
but,
no, it's a good
there
point.
are new stuff that's just coming to streaming and stuff like that.
Yep.
So that's what I would say to that.
It's a good point. All right, I think this is the last super chat here. I got to get going. David Lee Barron, $4.99 super chat says, to our Lord and Savior Cecil Christ.
Yeah, that's a little much.
I love
Yeeks.
He always phrases things
oof.
like that.
Okay.
He always says that. How would you, it's fucking funny. How would you like Freddy to kill you in a movie?
Not.
If it was me, I would like Freddy to say, help yourself, fucker.
I mean, it's the weird. Do I know it's Freddy? Because if not, I would just like give me a nurse situation in part 4. You know what I mean? Like I'll take one of those kind of deaths.
Freddy though.
Yeah, but do I know it's Freddy though? Like that's.
Does it matter?
I mean, yeah, I don't know.
Does it matter? I'm just thinking, you know.
I mean, if I'm gonna die anyway, who's gonna judge me? Who's gonna judge me, Dave?
That's the bar. Is he gonna die?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
He said get killed, so
because you'll die not knowing. Because that's what. Okay. All right.
Look, I'm dying no matter what by Freddy. I might as well die while he's a hot woman. You know what I mean?
But maybe he comes out of the hot woman just as you're dying, goes, ha ha ha.
Like you.
Yeah, sucker.
You got me, Fred.
Yeah. You're lying there naked with your pants down. No.
Like, whatever.
Whatever. See you guys going out in a blaze of glory. Cheers.
Tell my story.
That's right. That's it. Well, listen, folks. I've got to skedaddle. Cecil and I have to talk a bit, and then I got some trailer stuff to attend to for It's Me, Billy. So, want to thank to the super chat questions that came in, and thank everybody for watching today. Cecil, thank you so much for coming on the show again. Really appreciate it. Always love having you on, talking shop, man. You're just awesome, and it's just great having you on. And any last things you want to say? You want to tell people where they can find you online?
Absolutely. The Horror Show channel on YouTube. You can check us out there. The links to all of our socials are on the channel. So thank you to all the commenters, and thank you to Dave for having me on again. I always have a good time coming on here.
Yeah, no problem, man. Anytime. And just send me the invoice. So we'll anyway, I should have kept a straight face. People would have been like, did they just end the show like that?
They just slip up?
Slip up? What's going on? Are we on? Shit, we're still on. So folks, I'll be back, of course, unless something changes, Thursday morning or Thursday afternoon, 12 p.m. Eastern time, 9 p.m. Pacific, for you fine folks out there. Have a great rest of your Tuesday. And in the meantime, and in between time, I will talk to you soon. Cheers.